The architects of thought, how modern society shapes the human mind. A question of identity. Welcome everyone. Take a moment and think about the person you are today. Your beliefs, your values, your opinions, your ambitions, your fears, your understanding of the world. Most of us assume these things belong entirely to us. We call them my thoughts, my choices, my identity. But have you ever stopped to ask a deeper question? Where did they come from? And how much of what you believe was truly chosen by you? Today we begin a journey into one of the most powerful and least understood forces in human history, the shaping of the human mind. This is not a story about one person. It is a story about all of us. Welcome to the Architects of Thought. The invisible blueprint. Long before you made your first choice, long before you chose your friends, long before you chose your career, long before you formed your political opinions, your beliefs, your ambitions, or your understanding of the world, something was already shaping you. You entered a world that existed long before your arrival, a world filled with languages you did not create, customs you did not choose, stories you did not write, rules you did not design, and ideas you did not invent. From the moment you opened your eyes, you became part of a vast human story already in progress. You learned words before you understood their meaning. You learned habits before you understood their purpose. You learned what was considered normal before you ever questioned what normal meant. Piece by piece, day by day, year by year, the world began teaching you how to see reality. Most of this happened quietly, without announcements, without warnings, without conscious awareness. A smile taught you what was acceptable. A criticism taught you what was not. A classroom taught you what was important. A culture taught you who belonged. A community taught you what to admire. A society taught you what success looked like. And slowly, almost invisibly, a picture of reality began forming inside your mind. Not because you chose it, but because it was presented to you. For thousands of years, human beings have passed knowledge from one generation to the next. This process helped civilizations survive. It helped cultures flourish. It allowed science, art, philosophy, and technology to evolve. Without it, humanity could never have progressed. Yet every gift carries a hidden challenge, because along with knowledge, societies also pass assumptions. Along with wisdom, they pass biases. Along with truth, they sometimes pass illusions. Every generation inherits ways of thinking from the generations before it. Some of these ideas help us grow. Others limit us without our realizing it. And often the most powerful influences are the ones we never notice. The beliefs we question are easy to examine. The beliefs we never question become invisible. They settle quietly beneath the surface of consciousness and begin guiding our decisions, perceptions, and behaviors. We call them common sense, we call them tradition, we call them culture, we call them normal. But what if normal is not always natural? What if some of our deepest assumptions were simply inherited? What if many of the ideas we defend most passionately were accepted long before we ever examined them? And what if the forces shaping our thoughts have become more powerful than ever before? Today, the human mind exists within an environment unlike any in history. For the first time, billions of people are connected through digital networks. Information travels across the planet in seconds. Ideas compete for attention every moment of every day. Algorithms decide what appears before our eyes. Media influences emotions on a global scale. Technology shapes behavior in ways previous generations could never have imagined. Every notification competes for attention. Every platform competes for engagement. Every headline competes for emotion. And every day, countless invisible systems influence what people think about themselves, each other, and the world around them. Yet despite living in the most connected age in human history, many people have never paused to ask a simple question. Who is shaping the way I think? Not in a spirit of fear, not in a spirit of suspicion, but in a spirit of understanding. Because understanding how the mind is shaped is one of the most important forms of knowledge a human being can possess. To understand society, we must first understand influence. To understand influence, we must first understand ourselves. And to understand ourselves, we must be willing to look beyond what is familiar, beyond what is comfortable, beyond what we have always assumed to be true. This is not a story about conspiracy. It is not a story about villains. It is not a story about one institution, one technology, one ideology, or one generation. It is a story about something far deeper. It is a story about the relationship between the individual mind and the society that surrounds it. A story about how human beings become who they are. A story about psychology, education, culture, media, technology, belonging, identity, and the invisible forces that quietly shape the way we see reality. Because before we can understand the world around us, we must first understand the world that has been built inside us. Welcome to a journey into the architecture of human thought. Welcome to the architects of thought. The shaping of the self born into a story. No human being enters the world with a ready-made identity. We arrive without language, without beliefs, without political opinions, without religious doctrines, without cultural loyalties, without ideas of success or failure, without a personal understanding of right and wrong. At the beginning, there is only potential, a mind waiting to learn, a consciousness waiting to explore, a human being waiting to discover the world. Yet from the very first moment of life, that discovery does not happen in isolation. Every child is born into a story that began long before their arrival. A family story, a cultural story, a national story, a historical story, a social story. And whether we realize it or not, these stories become the foundation upon which identity is built. Before a child can ask who they are, the world begins answering the question for them. This is your name. This is your language. This is your community. This is what people like us believe. This is what people like us value. This is what people like us fear. This is what people like us hope for. These lessons are rarely taught in a classroom. Most are absorbed through observation, through repetition, through daily life. A child watches, listens, imitates, learns. Psychologists often describe children as social learners. From an early age, they observe the behaviors, attitudes, emotions, and beliefs of those around them. Without realizing it, they begin constructing a mental map of reality. What is safe? What is dangerous? What is acceptable? What is unacceptable? Who belongs? Who does not? What deserves praise? What deserves criticism? This process is not inherently good or bad. It is simply human. Without it, societies could not survive. Every generation depends on passing knowledge to the next. Parents teach children, communities teach newcomers, cultures preserve traditions, civilizations transmit values. This transfer of knowledge has helped humanity achieve extraordinary things. It has allowed people separated by centuries to learn from one another. It has preserved wisdom, science, literature, art, and collective experience. Yet there is another side to this process. Because human beings do not inherit only knowledge, they also inherit assumptions. Ideas that feel so normal, they are rarely questioned. Beliefs that seem so obvious, they appear to be facts. Perspectives that become invisible precisely because they are familiar. Imagine being born into a world where everyone around you believed exactly the same thing. The same traditions, the same customs, the same explanations, the same worldview. How would you know which ideas were true? How would you distinguish objective reality from social agreement? The answer is not as simple as we might think, because human beings are deeply influenced by the environments in which they grow. Research in psychology consistently demonstrates that people are shaped by context. The communities we belong to influence how we interpret events. The language we speak influences how we describe experiences. The stories we hear influence how we understand ourselves. Even our expectations about life are often inherited from the cultures around us. A child raised in one society may grow up with a completely different understanding of success than a child raised in another. One culture may emphasize individual achievement. Another may emphasize collective responsibility. One may celebrate competition. Another may value cooperation. Neither child chose these starting assumptions. They simply inherited them. And because these assumptions arrive early in life, they often become part of the lens through which reality is viewed. The lens itself becomes difficult to see. Consider language. Language is one of humanity's greatest achievements. It allows us to communicate ideas, preserve knowledge, and build civilizations. Yet language does more than describe reality. It also shapes how we think about reality. The words available to us influence how we categorize experiences. The stories embedded within language influence how we understand the world. In many ways, language becomes one of the first architects of thought. Then there are the stories. Stories are among the oldest tools humans have ever used. Long before books, long before television, long before the internet. Human beings gathered around fires and shared stories. Stories taught values. Stories explained mysteries. Stories strengthened communities. Stories created meaning, but stories also shape perception. The stories a society tells itself influence what its members believe is possible. They influence heroes and villains, success and failure, hope and fear. They influence how people understand the past and imagine the future. And perhaps most importantly, they influence how individuals understand themselves. Every person carries an internal story, a story about who they are, where they belong, what they are capable of becoming. Yet much of that story was written long before they ever picked up the pen. This realization can be uncomfortable. Many people prefer to believe they developed entirely on their own, that their beliefs emerged independently, that their worldview is purely the product of personal choice. But the truth is more complex. None of us begin as completely independent thinkers. We begin as learners. We begin as imitators. We begin as participants in stories already in progress. The question is not whether these stories shaped us. They did. The question is whether we ever stop to examine them, whether we ever pause and ask, which beliefs truly belong to me? Which values have I consciously chosen? Which assumptions have I inherited without question? Because the journey toward independent thought does not begin by rejecting every story we were given. It begins by becoming aware that we were given stories at all. And that awareness is where freedom begins. Before society could influence your opinions, before media could influence your attention, before algorithms could influence your choices, there was something else. The first teachers of the human mind, the people, environments, and experiences that shaped us before we even understood what influence was. To understand how society shapes thought, we must first understand those earliest lessons, and that is where our journey continues. The system that teaches you not to think the first lessons. Long before a child understands logic, before they can evaluate evidence, before they can distinguish fact from opinion, the human mind is already learning, not through textbooks, not through lectures, but through experience. Every smile, every reaction, every reward, every punishment, every word spoken in moments of joy or anger, every expression on a parent's face, every act of kindness, every act of fear, every moment becomes a lesson. And some of the most important lessons in life are never formally taught. They are absorbed, quietly, repeatedly, powerfully. Imagine a child entering the world for the first time. The world is unfamiliar. Everything is new. Everything is uncertain. The child does not yet know what is safe, what is dangerous, what is good, what is bad, what deserves trust, what deserves fear. To navigate this uncertainty, the child naturally looks to others, parents, family members, teachers, caregivers, older siblings. The people who surround them become mirrors through which reality is interpreted. If the people around a child react to the world with curiosity, the child often learns curiosity. If they react with fear, the child often learns fear. If they react with empathy, the child often learns empathy. If they react with hostility, the child may learn hostility. Human beings are natural imitators. Long before we become independent thinkers, we become observers. We watch, we copy, we adapt. This ability helped our ancestors survive. It allowed knowledge to pass from one generation to the next. But it also means that much of what we become is shaped by examples rather than deliberate choices. The child who watches courage learns something about courage. The child who watches prejudice learns something about prejudice. The child who watches compassion learns something about compassion. And often these lessons become deeply rooted long before they are consciously understood. Psychologists sometimes describe childhood as one of the most influential periods of human development, not because children are weak, but because they are extraordinarily receptive. The young mind absorbs information at a remarkable rate. Patterns become habits. Habits become expectations. Expectations become beliefs. And beliefs begin shaping how reality is interpreted. A child repeatedly told they are capable may begin to see challenges as opportunities. A child repeatedly told they are inadequate may begin to see challenges as threats. The words may disappear, but the internal story often remains. Over time, these stories become part of identity. I am smart. I am not smart. I belong. I do not belong. I am valuable. I am not valuable. These beliefs often feel personal, yet many were planted long before the individual had the ability to evaluate them. This does not mean childhood determines destiny. Human beings are far more resilient and adaptable than that. People change. People grow. People heal. People learn. But understanding influence requires acknowledging where influence begins. And influence often begins with emotional experiences. The human brain remembers emotion. Moments of fear, moments of embarrassment, moments of acceptance, moments of rejection. These experiences leave traces. Sometimes they become powerful reference points for future behavior. A child praised for speaking may become more confident expressing ideas. A child repeatedly ridiculed may become hesitant to speak. A child encouraged to ask questions may develop intellectual curiosity. A child discouraged from questioning may learn silence. The lesson is not always in the words themselves. The lesson is often in the emotion attached to them. Over time, emotional learning creates invisible rules. Rules about what feels safe, what feels risky, what feels acceptable, and what feels forbidden. Many adults spend years following these invisible rules without realizing where they came from. Then there is another powerful teacher: belonging. Human beings are social creatures. Throughout history, survival often depended upon remaining part of a group. Being accepted by the tribe meant safety. Being rejected could mean danger. Because of this, the desire to belong became deeply embedded within human psychology. Even today, people often adjust their behavior to gain acceptance or avoid rejection. Children learn this lesson early. They learn which behaviors receive approval, which behaviors receive criticism, which ideas are celebrated, which ideas are discouraged. Gradually, many begin shaping themselves to fit the expectations around them, not because they are dishonest, but because belonging feels necessary, and perhaps it is. Every society requires some degree of shared values and cooperation. Without social bonds, communities cannot function. But there is a hidden challenge. The desire to belong can sometimes become stronger than the desire to understand. Acceptance can become more important than truth. Agreement can become more comfortable than questioning, and conformity can begin replacing curiosity. This tendency does not disappear in adulthood. It evolves. It follows us into schools, workplaces, communities, political movements, religious groups, digital spaces, and social networks. The lessons of childhood become the foundations upon which later influences are built. By the time a child reaches adolescence, much of their understanding of the world has already been shaped by countless interactions, not fully determined, but significantly influenced. And yet, childhood is only the beginning. As we grow older, another powerful institution takes a central role in shaping thought. An institution that influences nearly every human being on Earth. An institution designed to educate, prepare, and guide future generations. The question is not whether it shapes minds. It does. The question is how, and what kind of thinking it encourages. To understand that influence, we must turn to one of the most powerful architects of modern society: education. The architects of perception, the education of conformity. Education is one of humanity's greatest achievements. Through education, knowledge travels across generations. Scientific discoveries survive their creators. Ancient wisdom reaches modern minds. Skills are passed from teacher to student. Civilizations preserve what they have learned and build upon it. Without education, much of human progress would be impossible. Every doctor, every engineer, every scientist, every teacher, every artist, every innovator stands upon knowledge inherited from those who came before. Education has transformed lives, opened opportunities, expanded horizons, and helped billions of people better understand the world. Yet alongside these remarkable achievements lies a question that is rarely asked. What exactly are schools teaching? At first, the answer seems obvious: mathematics, science, history, language, literature, and countless other subjects. But beneath these subjects exists another curriculum, one that is often invisible, a curriculum not written in textbooks, a curriculum of habits, expectations, behaviors, and assumptions. From an early age, children learn more than information. They learn systems, they learn schedules, they learn authority, they learn evaluation, they learn what is rewarded and what is discouraged. For many students, school becomes their first experience with large institutions, an environment where rules exist before they arrive, where structures are already established, where success is measured according to predefined standards, and where performance is constantly observed and assessed. Again, none of this is necessarily harmful. Complex societies require organization. Learning requires structure. Large groups require coordination. But structure always shapes behavior, and behavior eventually shapes thought. Consider a simple question. What happens when a child raises a hand before speaking for thousands of days? What happens when bells determine when activities begin and end? What happens when answers are graded according to predetermined criteria? What happens when success becomes associated with approval and failure becomes associated with criticism? Over time, these experiences do more than organized learning. They influence how individuals relate to authority, evaluation, and risk. Many students quickly discover that there are correct answers and incorrect answers. This is often necessary. After all, facts matter, evidence matters, accuracy matters. Yet an unintended consequence sometimes emerges. Some people begin fearing mistakes more than they value discovery. They become hesitant to experiment, hesitant to question, hesitant to challenge assumptions, not because they lack intelligence, but because years of evaluation have taught them to avoid being wrong. Psychologists have long observed that fear of failure can discourage curiosity. When mistakes are viewed primarily as evidence of inadequacy, people become more cautious, more defensive, less willing to explore uncertainty. Yet nearly every major breakthrough in history required uncertainty. Scientific discoveries emerged because someone questioned accepted ideas. Innovation emerged because someone challenged conventional thinking. Progress emerged because individuals were willing to risk being wrong. The paradox is striking. Societies often celebrate innovators after success. But innovation frequently begins with questioning ideas that others accept. And questioning can be uncomfortable, particularly in environments that reward conformity. Conformity itself is not always negative. Without some level of shared expectations, schools could not function, communities could not cooperate, societies could not coordinate collective efforts. The challenge arises when conformity becomes more important than understanding, when repeating accepted ideas becomes easier than examining them, when agreement becomes safer than inquiry. Human beings naturally seek certainty. Questions create uncertainty. Critical thinking often requires uncertainty. It requires admitting that our assumptions may be incomplete, that our understanding may be limited, that we may need to revise our beliefs when new evidence appears. This is not easy. It never has been. Yet it is one of the most important intellectual skills a person can develop. Perhaps the greatest purpose of education is not simply to provide answers. Perhaps it is to teach people how to ask better questions. Questions open doors. Questions challenge assumptions. Questions reveal blind spots. Questions transform passive learners into active thinkers. History itself demonstrates this principle. Many of the ideas now considered obvious were once controversial. At various points in history, individuals challenged accepted beliefs about science, medicine, astronomy, politics, and human rights. They questioned assumptions that others viewed as unquestionable. Some were ridiculed, some were ignored, some faced resistance, yet many helped move humanity forward, not because they possessed all the answers, but because they were willing to ask difficult questions. This raises an important distinction. There is a difference between education and intellectual independence. Education provides information. Intellectual independence determines how information is evaluated. Education can teach facts. Intellectual independence teaches discernment. Education can provide knowledge. Critical thinking determines what we do with that knowledge. The healthiest societies need both. Knowledge without critical thinking can lead to blind acceptance. Critical thinking without knowledge can lead to confusion. Wisdom emerges when both work together. The goal is not to reject education. The goal is to deepen it, to move beyond memorization toward understanding, beyond repetition toward reflection, beyond passive learning toward active inquiry. Because the future will not belong only to those who know the most. It will belong to those who can think clearly in a world overflowing with information. And nowhere is that challenge more visible than in the modern information environment itself, an environment where billions of people receive stories, images, opinions, and narratives every single day. An environment where attention has become one of the most valuable resources on Earth. To understand how modern minds are shaped, we must now look beyond classrooms, beyond textbooks, beyond institutions, and into the powerful systems that influence perception on a global scale. The world of media. Manufactured reality. The world you were shown. Every day, billions of human beings wake up and attempt to understand the world around them. They want to know what is happening, what matters, what deserves attention, what deserves concern, what deserves hope. Yet no human being can observe the entire world directly. No one can witness every event. No one can personally investigate every claim. No one can experience the lives of billions of other people. The world is simply too vast, too complex, too interconnected. As a result, every society depends upon something powerful: stories. Stories help human beings make sense of reality. They transform complexity into meaning. They organize information into narratives that people can understand. Long before newspapers, long before television, long before the internet, stories shaped civilizations, stories transmitted knowledge, stories preserved culture, stories created identity, stories united communities. Human beings have always relied on stories to understand the world. But in the modern age, something changed. The scale became global. For the first time in history, a single event can be witnessed by millions of people within minutes. A single image can travel across continents. A single narrative can influence entire populations. Information moves faster than ever before. And with this transformation came a new kind of power, the power to influence perception. Because there is an important distinction between reality itself and our perception of reality. Reality is everything that exists. Perception is the portion of reality that reaches our awareness. And between those two lies a filter. A filter built from stories, images, headlines, algorithms, and narratives. Every day, countless events happen across the world. Most never appear in the news. Most never become viral. Most never receive public attention. The question is not only what is shown, the question is also what remains unseen. Attention is limited. Human beings can focus on only a small portion of reality at any given moment. This means that every media system must make choices. Which stories deserve coverage? Which stories deserve emphasis? Which stories deserve repetition? And which stories fade into the background? These decisions help shape public perception, not necessarily through deception, but through selection. What receives attention often feels important. What remains invisible often feels unimportant. Yet reality is rarely that simple. Psychologists have identified a phenomenon known as the availability heuristic. People tend to judge the frequency or importance of events based on how easily examples come to mind. If something is repeatedly seen, discussed, and shared, it begins to feel larger than life, more common, more significant, more urgent, even when the broader reality may be more nuanced. This tendency is not a flaw unique to modern society. It is part of human psychology. Our minds naturally pay attention to information that is vivid, emotional, surprising, or memorable. And modern media understands this deeply. Emotion captures attention. Conflict captures attention. Fear captures attention. Outrage captures attention. Novelty captures attention. The more emotionally charged a message becomes, the more likely it is to spread. This creates an environment where attention itself becomes a valuable resource, not because people are malicious, but because attention drives engagement, and engagement drives visibility. As a result, many individuals spend their days immersed in a carefully selected stream of information, a stream that influences what they think about, what they worry about, what they celebrate, and what they believe the world to be. Over time, repeated exposure shapes perception. The stories we hear repeatedly begin to feel familiar. The familiar begins to feel true, and the true begins to feel unquestionable. Yet perhaps the most fascinating aspect of media influence is not what it tells people to think. It is what it encourages people to think about. The topics that dominate public attention often shape conversations, priorities, and perceptions across entire societies. Millions of people may spend weeks discussing a single event. Meanwhile, countless other issues remain unnoticed. Again, this is not necessarily the result of manipulation. It is often the result of human psychology interacting with modern communication systems. The challenge is that attention can become concentrated, and when attention becomes concentrated, perception can become distorted. A person may begin to confuse visibility with importance, popularity with truth, repetition with accuracy, confidence with expertise. Yet reality does not always reward the loudest voices. Reality remains indifferent to popularity. Facts remain facts whether they are widely accepted or not. Evidence remains evidence whether it is celebrated or ignored. This is why critical thinking becomes essential in the modern information age. Not because every message is false, but because every message is incomplete. Every story highlights certain details and leaves out others. Every narrative has boundaries. Every perspective sees part of the picture. No single source can capture the entirety of reality. The challenge for modern citizens is not merely accessing information. The challenge is learning how to evaluate it, how to compare perspectives, how to recognize emotional influence, how to distinguish evidence from assumption, how to remain curious in environments designed to deliver certainty. Yet even as media evolved, another transformation was already underway. A transformation far more personal, far more intimate, far more powerful. In the past, millions of people consumed the same information. Today, each person increasingly inhabits a different informational world. Different feeds, different recommendations, different narratives, different realities. The architect of this new environment is not a newspaper, not a television network, not a radio station. It is something far more sophisticated, something that quietly studies attention itself, the algorithm. And with its rise, the shaping of human thought entered an entirely new era. The algorithmic mind, the personalized reality. For most of human history, people lived in relatively similar informational environments. Families shared stories around the same table. Communities discussed the same local events. Citizens often read the same newspapers, watched the same broadcasts, listened to the same voices. Their opinions differed, their experiences differed, but the information reaching them was often drawn from a common pool of reality. Today, that world is disappearing. A new environment has emerged, an environment unlike anything humanity has ever experienced. An environment where billions of people carry a personalized stream of information in their pockets, a stream that follows them everywhere, when they wake up, when they travel, when they work, when they eat, when they rest, and even when they sleep. For many people, the first thing they see each morning is not the world itself. It is a screen, a feed, a recommendation, a notification, a carefully selected piece of information chosen from an ocean of possibilities. But who chooses what appears? Who decides which stories reach your eyes? Which videos appear before you? Which opinions enter your awareness? Which ideas are repeated? Increasingly, the answer is not another human being. It is an algorithm. The word algorithm may sound technical, complicated, distant, but in reality, algorithms have become some of the most influential forces in modern life. At their simplest, algorithms are systems designed to make decisions, to sort information, to identify patterns, to determine what is most likely to capture attention. Every day, these systems process enormous amounts of data. What people click, what they watch, what they like, what they share, what they ignore, what keeps them engaged, what causes them to leave. Over time, algorithms learn, not in the way human beings learn, but in a way that allows them to become increasingly effective at predicting behavior. Their primary goal is often simple: keep attention, keep engagement, keep people interacting. Because in the digital age, attention has become one of the most valuable resources in existence. Entire industries compete for it. Entire platforms depend upon it, and increasingly, entire business models are built around it. This creates a remarkable situation. For the first time in human history, millions of intelligent systems are continuously optimizing themselves to capture human attention. Not because they hate humanity, not because they wish to control humanity, but because attention drives visibility. Visibility drives engagement, and engagement drives success. Yet even without malicious intent, powerful consequences can emerge. Because what captures attention is not always what promotes understanding. What attracts clicks is not always what encourages wisdom. What spreads rapidly is not always what reflects reality. Human psychology has not changed as quickly as technology. The same brain that evolved in small communities now navigates a world of endless information. And that brain remains highly sensitive to novelty, emotion, conflict, fear, surprise, validation. Algorithms learn these patterns and naturally begin delivering more of what captures engagement. The result is subtle, yet profound. People begin seeing more of what interests them, more of what confirms their beliefs, more of what holds their attention, more of what keeps them emotionally invested. At first, this feels helpful, convenient, personalized, relevant, and often it is. Recommendation systems can introduce people to valuable ideas, educational content, inspiring creators, important knowledge, communities they may never have discovered otherwise. Technology has created extraordinary opportunities for learning and connection, but every powerful tool carries trade-offs. When information becomes increasingly personalized, something unexpected can happen. Two people living in the same city, walking the same streets, experiencing the same world, may gradually inhabit entirely different realities, different feeds, different narratives, different assumptions, different perceptions of what is happening around them. Psychologists sometimes describe this as a form of informational filtering. People are naturally exposed to certain perspectives more frequently than others. Over time, repeated exposure can strengthen confidence in those perspectives, not necessarily because they are correct, but because they are familiar, and familiarity is powerful. The human mind often interprets familiarity as truth. Ideas encountered repeatedly begin to feel more reasonable, more obvious, more self-evident. This is not a flaw unique to digital technology. It is part of human nature. But algorithms can amplify this tendency on an unprecedented scale. Slowly, people may find themselves surrounded by information that reflects what they already believe. Voices that agree, stories that reinforce, content that validates. And as alternative perspectives become less visible, certainty can grow. The world begins to appear simpler than it truly is. More divided, more predictable, more black and white. Yet reality is rarely black and white. Reality is complex, messy, nuanced, filled with uncertainty and contradiction. The healthiest thinking often emerges not from constant agreement, but from thoughtful exposure to different perspectives. This requires curiosity, humility, and the willingness to encounter ideas that challenge our assumptions. Unfortunately, algorithms are not designed primarily to cultivate wisdom. They are designed to optimize engagement, and engagement often rewards certainty more than curiosity, reaction more than reflection, speed more than understanding. The consequences extend beyond information. They shape identity itself. Many people now spend significant portions of their lives online. They learn what gains approval, what gains visibility, what attracts attention, and gradually some begin adapting their behavior accordingly. Digital environments become social environments, and social environments influence behavior. The opinions we express, the images we share, the personas we construct, the communities we join, the causes we support, the conflicts we engage in, all become part of a feedback loop between human psychology and technological systems. For perhaps the first time in history, identity itself is being shaped within environments designed to maximize engagement. This does not mean people are powerless. Far from it. Human beings remain capable of awareness, reflection, choice. The purpose of understanding algorithms is not to fear them. It is to understand the environment in which modern thought now develops. Because awareness creates freedom. A person who understands influence becomes less vulnerable to unconscious influence. A person who understands attention becomes more intentional with attention. A person who understands manipulation becomes more difficult to manipulate. Yet there is another force that shapes human behavior even more deeply than technology. A force older than media, older than algorithms, older than civilization itself. A force that has guided human behavior for tens of thousands of years. The need to belong, the influence of the group, the power of the crowd. To understand that force, we must look inward once again, toward one of the oldest architects of thought ever known, the human tribe. The crowd within, the voices you call your own, long before there were nations, long before there were schools, long before there were newspapers, television networks, smartphones, or algorithms. Human beings lived in small groups, families, tribes, communities. For our ancestors, survival rarely depended on individual strength alone. It depended on cooperation, protection, belonging. A person separated from the group often faced extraordinary risks. Food became harder to find, danger became harder to avoid, survival became uncertain. Over thousands of generations, the human mind adapted to this reality. The need to belong became deeply woven into our psychology. And although the modern world looks very different from the ancient world, that need remains. Today, people may no longer depend upon a tribe for physical survival, but they still depend upon groups for something equally powerful: identity, meaning, connection, acceptance. Human beings are social creatures. We want to be understood. We want to be valued. We want to feel that we are part of something larger than ourselves. There is nothing wrong with this. In fact, many of the most beautiful aspects of human life emerge from belonging. Friendship, family, community, shared purpose, collective achievement, the ability to work together toward common goals. These are among humanity's greatest strengths. Yet every strength carries a shadow, because the desire to belong can sometimes influence what we think, what we say, and even what we are willing to question. Imagine standing in a room where everyone believes the same thing. Everyone agrees, everyone nods, everyone repeats the same conclusion. Now imagine that you see something different, something that does not fit the consensus. Would you speak? Would you disagree? Would you risk standing alone? For many people, this is surprisingly difficult, not because they lack intelligence, not because they lack integrity, but because disagreement often carries a social cost. The fear of isolation is one of the oldest fears in human history, and the human mind is highly sensitive to it. Psychologists have spent decades studying conformity. Again and again, research has demonstrated a fascinating truth. People do not always follow the crowd because they are convinced. Sometimes they follow because they are uncertain. Sometimes they follow because they assume the group knows something they do not. And sometimes they follow simply because standing apart feels uncomfortable. The result is one of the most powerful forces in human behavior: social influence, a force capable of shaping opinions, attitudes, and actions across entire populations. This influence can produce remarkable outcomes. Communities can unite to solve problems. Citizens can cooperate during crises. People can support one another through hardship. Shared values can strengthen societies, but the same force can also discourage independent thought. When belonging becomes more important than truth, questioning becomes difficult. When group identity becomes central to self-worth, disagreement can feel like betrayal. And when loyalty to the group becomes absolute, critical thinking often suffers. This tendency appears across cultures, across ideologies, across generations, across every corner of human society. No group is immune. Political groups, religious groups, social movements, professional communities, online communities. Every group develops its own assumptions, norms, and expectations. And every group creates pressure, sometimes subtle, sometimes powerful, to conform. Often this pressure is invisible. No one explicitly demands agreement. Yet people quickly learn which opinions receive approval, which opinions receive applause, which opinions receive criticism. And over time, many begin adjusting themselves accordingly. Not because they are dishonest, but because social approval feels rewarding, and social rejection feels painful. Modern technology has amplified these dynamics. In the past, social influence was often limited to family, friends, co-workers, and local communities. Today, approval and disapproval can arrive instantly from thousands of strangers. A comment, a share, a reaction, a trend, a viral movement. Every signal communicates something. This is accepted, this is celebrated, this is condemned, this belongs, this does not. As a result, people often find themselves navigating a vast social landscape where visibility and approval are constantly intertwined. The crowd is no longer limited to a physical place. The crowd now exists everywhere and nowhere. It lives inside screens, inside networks, inside communities connected across continents. Yet perhaps the most fascinating aspect of conformity is that it often feels like independence. People rarely wake up and decide to imitate others. Instead, they gradually absorb the attitudes and assumptions of the groups around them. The influence feels natural, reasonable, self-evident, because human beings tend to see the world through the lens of the communities to which they belong. This does not mean every group belief is wrong, far from it. Groups can be sources of wisdom, support, knowledge, and progress. The challenge is not belonging. The challenge is maintaining the ability to think while belonging, to participate without surrendering curiosity, to cooperate without abandoning skepticism, to remain open to evidence even when evidence challenges the group. This requires courage, not dramatic courage, not heroic courage, but intellectual courage, the willingness to ask questions, the willingness to examine assumptions, the willingness to say, perhaps we should look more closely. History repeatedly demonstrates the importance of this courage. Many ideas once accepted by entire societies were later reconsidered. Many assumptions once viewed as unquestionable were eventually challenged. Progress often begins when someone becomes willing to think differently, not for the sake of rebellion, but for the sake of understanding. Because truth is not determined by popularity. Reality does not conduct opinion polls. A belief does not become accurate simply because millions of people repeat it. And an idea does not become false simply because it is unpopular. This realization can be uncomfortable, yet it is essential. For a society to remain healthy, individuals must be capable of both belonging and thinking, both cooperating and questioning, both listening and evaluating. The crowd can provide strength, but it cannot replace judgment. The group can provide support, but it cannot replace understanding. And perhaps the most important questions are not about the crowd around us. They are about the crowd within us. The inherited assumptions, the social expectations, the invisible pressures, the voices we carry without realizing it. Because after family, after education, after media, after algorithms, and after the influence of the group. A deeper question remains: how much of what we call independent thought is truly independent? How many of our choices are shaped by forces operating beyond conscious awareness? To answer that question, we must explore one of the greatest mysteries of the human mind: the hidden influences that shape our decisions without us even noticing. The illusion of independence. The illusion of independence. The freedom you assumed. Most people believe they think for themselves. And in many ways they do. They make choices, they form opinions, they pursue goals, they build lives, they experience the world through their own eyes. The feeling of personal agency is one of the most fundamental aspects of being human. It allows individuals to take responsibility for their actions, to make decisions, to create meaning, to shape their future. Without this sense of agency, society could not function. Yet there is a deeper question hidden beneath that experience. How much of what we call my opinion was consciously chosen? How much of what we call my decision was influenced before the decision was ever made? And how many of the forces shaping our behavior operate beyond our awareness? The human mind is extraordinary. It can solve complex problems, imagine distant futures, create works of art, develop scientific theories, build civilizations. Yet despite its remarkable abilities, the human mind has limitations. And one of its greatest limitations is that it often cannot fully see itself. We notice the world, but we do not always notice the processes through which we interpret the world. We observe our conclusions, but we do not always observe how we arrived at them. As a result, many influences remain hidden, not because they are secret, but because they are familiar. Consider a simple example. Two people witness the same event, the same words, the same situation, the same facts, yet they reach completely different conclusions. Why? Because human beings do not experience reality directly. They experience reality through interpretation. Every person sees the world through a lens shaped by past experiences, beliefs, expectations, emotions, and assumptions. The event remains the same. The interpretation changes. And often, the interpretation feels like reality itself. This is one of the most fascinating characteristics of human psychology. We rarely experience our perspective as a perspective. We experience it as truth. The mind naturally constructs explanations for what it sees. Stories that make the world feel coherent, narratives that create certainty, patterns that provide meaning. Most of the time, this process is helpful. Without it, daily life would be overwhelming. But there is a hidden danger. The stories we create can become invisible, and invisible assumptions are difficult to question. Psychologists have identified many cognitive biases that influence human judgment. Not because people are irrational, but because the brain relies on mental shortcuts. These shortcuts help us navigate a complex world, yet they can also distort perception. People often notice evidence that supports existing beliefs more easily than evidence that challenges them. They often remember information that reinforces their views. They often interpret ambiguity in ways that align with their expectations. This tendency is deeply human. It affects individuals across cultures, professions, and educational backgrounds. No one is entirely immune, not because some people are unintelligent, but because all human beings think through minds that evolve for survival rather than perfect objectivity. The result is subtle. People often believe they arrived at conclusions independently when those conclusions may have been influenced by countless unseen factors. Past experiences, cultural narratives, social environments, media exposure, group identities, emotional associations, and unconscious assumptions accumulated over years. Again, this does not mean people are controlled. It means people are influenced. And influence is not the same as control. The distinction matters. A healthy understanding of influence does not remove responsibility. It increases responsibility, because awareness creates choice. The more aware a person becomes of the forces shaping their thinking, the more intentional their thinking can become. Perhaps the greatest illusion is not that we are influenced. The greatest illusion is believing we are not. Human beings often recognize influence in others long before they recognize it in themselves. We easily notice bias in opposing groups. We easily identify assumptions in other people. We easily criticize perspectives different from our own. But self-examination is more difficult. The closer an assumption is to our identity, the harder it becomes to see. Because questioning an idea sometimes feels like questioning ourselves. This is why intellectual humility is so important. Intellectual humility is not weakness. It is not uncertainty for its own sake. It is the recognition that every human perspective is limited, that no individual sees the entire picture. That understanding grows when curiosity remains stronger than ego. The most dangerous phrase in human thought may be, "I already know." Because the moment curiosity disappears, growth begins to slow. Questions become threats, evidence becomes inconvenience, and certainty becomes a prison. Throughout history, some of humanity's greatest mistakes emerged from unquestioned certainty. People became convinced they understood reality completely. Alternative perspectives were dismissed. New evidence was ignored. Assumptions became dogma. Yet history repeatedly teaches the same lesson. Reality is often more complex than it first appears. The wisest individuals are rarely those who claim absolute certainty. They are often those who remain open to learning, open to correction, open to deeper understanding. Perhaps true independence is not the absence of influence. Such a thing may be impossible. Every human being is shaped by family, culture, language, experience, society. The goal is not to eliminate influence. The goal is to become conscious of it, to recognize the forces that shape perception, to examine assumptions rather than automatically accepting them, to ask questions before reaching conclusions, to remain curious in a world that constantly offers certainty. Because freedom of thought does not begin when influence disappears. Freedom of thought begins when influence becomes visible. And when it becomes visible, something remarkable becomes possible. A person can begin choosing which ideas deserve a place in their mind, which assumptions deserve examination, which beliefs deserve revision, and which values deserve commitment. This is where awareness begins. This is where conscious thinking begins. This is where the journey changes direction. Because understanding the forces that shape the mind is only half the story. The other half is learning what to do with that understanding. How to think more clearly, how to live more consciously, how to reclaim ownership of attention, judgment, and perspective, how to move from unconscious influence to intentional awareness. And that is where our final chapter begins, the path toward reclaiming the mind. Reclaiming the mind, the return to conscious choice. If every human being is shaped by influences, family, culture, education, media, technology, communities, and countless experiences accumulated throughout life, then an important question emerges. What does freedom actually mean? Many people imagine freedom as the absence of limitations, the ability to do whatever one desires, to think whatever one wishes, to live without restriction. But perhaps freedom begins somewhere deeper. Perhaps freedom begins with awareness. Because it is difficult to choose consciously when we do not recognize what is influencing us. It is difficult to think independently when we never examine the assumptions we carry. And it is difficult to direct our lives intentionally when our attention is constantly being directed by others. The journey we have taken throughout this documentary has not been about blaming society, nor has it been about rejecting the systems that shape human life. Every generation depends upon influence. Parents influence children, teachers influence students, writers influence readers, friends influence one another, communities influence individuals. Influence itself is neither good nor bad. It is simply part of being human. The question is not whether influence exists. The question is whether we are aware of it, because awareness changes everything. The moment a person becomes aware of an influence, a new possibility appears: choice. For perhaps the first time, they can step back and ask, do I truly believe this? Why do I believe this? Where did this idea come from? Does it still deserve a place in my life? These questions are simple, yet they possess extraordinary power. They transform passive acceptance into active reflection. They transform habit into intention. They transform inherited assumptions into conscious decisions. This process is not easy. The human mind naturally seeks certainty. Certainty feels comfortable, predictable, safe. Questions introduce uncertainty, and uncertainty often feels uncomfortable. Yet growth rarely occurs within perfect certainty. Growth begins when curiosity becomes stronger than fear, when understanding becomes more important than ego, when truth becomes more valuable than being right. Throughout history, some of humanity's most remarkable individuals shared a common characteristic. They remained willing to question, not because they rejected everything, but because they refused to stop learning. They understood that wisdom is not the accumulation of certainty. Wisdom is the continuous refinement of understanding, the recognition that knowledge is always incomplete, that reality is often more complex than it first appears, and that learning never truly ends. This mindset requires intellectual humility, a quality often misunderstood. Intellectual humility does not mean doubting everything. It does not mean lacking conviction. It means recognizing that every human being has blind spots, that every perspective is limited, that even our strongest beliefs should remain open to examination. Humility allows curiosity to survive, and curiosity is one of the most powerful tools of freedom. Curiosity asks questions. Curiosity explores alternatives. Curiosity seeks understanding rather than victory. In a world overflowing with information, curiosity becomes a compass. It helps people navigate complexity without becoming trapped by certainty. Yet reclaiming the mind requires more than curiosity. It requires attention, because attention is where experience begins. What we pay attention to gradually shapes our reality. The books we read, the conversations we have, the ideas we explore, the media we consume, the people we surround ourselves with. Each becomes part of the architecture of thought. Every day, countless voices compete for attention. Some seek to inform, some seek to entertain, some seek to persuade, some seek to provoke, some seek only to keep us engaged. In such an environment, attention becomes a responsibility. Where attention goes, thought often follows, and where thought goes, life eventually follows. To reclaim the mind is to become intentional with attention, to decide what deserves a place within our consciousness, to choose reflection over constant reaction, depth over distraction, understanding over outrage, awareness over automation. This does not require withdrawing from society. It requires engaging with society consciously. It does not require rejecting technology. It requires using technology intentionally. It does not require abandoning communities. It requires participating in them thoughtfully. The goal is balance. The ability to remain open without becoming passive, critical without becoming cynical, confident without becoming arrogant, curious without becoming lost. Perhaps true freedom is not freedom from influence. Perhaps true freedom is the ability to recognize influence without being unconsciously controlled by it. The ability to think while surrounded by noise, to reflect while surrounded by distraction, to remain curious while surrounded by certainty, to remain human in systems increasingly designed to capture attention. And perhaps that is the great challenge of our age. Not merely acquiring information, but developing wisdom. Not merely expressing opinions, but understanding how those opinions were formed. Not merely consuming ideas, but examining them. Not merely reacting to the world, but consciously participating in it. Because the future of humanity may depend upon a simple truth. The quality of our societies depends upon the quality of our thinking. And the quality of our thinking depends upon our willingness to remain awake. Awake to influence, awake to assumption, awake to complexity, awake to ourselves. For the mind that questions grows, the mind that reflects deepens, and the mind that remains conscious becomes difficult to manipulate. That is the beginning of intellectual freedom. That is the beginning of wisdom. And perhaps that is the beginning of a more thoughtful future for ourselves, for our communities, and for the generations yet to come. Beyond conditioning. Seeing with your own eyes. Throughout this journey, we have explored the invisible forces that shape the human mind, the stories we inherit, the lessons we absorb, the institutions that educate us, the media that informs us, the algorithms that guide our attention, the groups that influence our beliefs, and the countless experiences that quietly shape how we see the world. None of these forces exist outside of us. They live within us, in our assumptions, our habits, our perceptions, our decisions, and our understanding of reality itself. The purpose of this documentary was never to suggest that influence can be escaped. No human being exists outside of influence. We are shaped by relationships, by communities, by culture, by history, by the people we meet and the experiences we live. Influence is part of the human story. It always has been, and it always will be. The question is not whether influence exists. The question is whether we become aware of it. Because awareness changes everything. The moment we begin examining our assumptions, we become more conscious. The moment we begin questioning our certainty, we become more open. The moment we begin understanding influence, we become more capable of choosing how we respond to it. And perhaps that is where true freedom begins. Not in isolation, not in rejecting the world, but in engaging with it consciously. The goal is not to stop learning from others. The goal is to learn without surrendering the ability to think. The goal is not to reject communities. The goal is to belong without losing individuality. The goal is not to avoid influence. The goal is to recognize it, to understand it, and to decide for ourselves what deserves a place within our minds. Because every generation inherits a world shaped by those who came before, and every generation leaves behind a world that will shape those who come after. The future is not built only through technology, or politics, or economics. It is built through thought, through ideas, through perception, through the countless decisions made by human beings every day. And those decisions begin in the mind, a mind capable of reflection, a mind capable of curiosity, a mind capable of growth, a mind capable of questioning. Perhaps the most powerful act in the modern world is not speaking louder, not moving faster, not consuming more information. Perhaps the most powerful act is simply pausing long enough to think, to ask, why do I believe this? How did I come to this conclusion? What assumptions am I carrying? What perspectives have I never considered? And what kind of thinker do I want to become? Because the quality of a life is shaped by the quality of its thoughts, and the quality of a society is shaped by the quality of the minds within it. The architects of thought are all around us, in culture, in technology, in institutions, in communities, in stories. But ultimately, the final architect is you. Every day, with every question you ask, every idea you examine, every assumption you challenge, and every truth you seek, you participate in the construction of your own mind. So move forward with awareness, move forward with curiosity, move forward with humility, move forward with courage, listen carefully, think deeply, question honestly, learn continuously. Because the future belongs not merely to those who possess information, but to those who possess understanding. And understanding begins the moment a person becomes conscious of the forces shaping their own mind. The journey toward awareness never truly ends. It continues with every question, every conversation, every discovery, and every moment of reflection. The architects of thought are everywhere, but from this moment forward, become one of your own. Thank you for watching.